I don't know if anyone out there is like me and hates making multiple trips, but it definitely makes for an awkward carry down the stairs in my tiny basement here. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone watching. Welcome to 2022. Before I get into this, I should really be into that stereotypical hipster snowboard look. All right, there we go. We are now feeding the stereotype of the typical snowboarder. We got the toque, the flannel plaid, and we're all good to actually get this board set up. But I figure I should talk a little bit about it and why I chose this board versus what I had previously, which was the K2 Fast Plant, which was more of a park riding freestyle twin tip board. So that's twin tip in the sense that it's the same length from the nose to the hardware as the tail to the hardware, as well as the flex. So it's really good for riding switch. It's also just easier to press the board or jib it on rails and things like that. But I'm almost 33 now, and as a freelance cinematographer, I have to really watch my body. And so I still spend a little bit of time in the park, but I have toned it down quite a bit. I still like to ride fast and have a board that's gonna be stable underfoot. And that's what the RIDE Berserker has done for me in the past. I've actually demoed this board a few times. I demoed it in 2019 when I actually reached out to my good friend Stu and Wes, who run K2 and RIDE in Ontario, and they hooked me up with a board for the week to try out, and it was the RIDE Berserker, because I actually picked that board up from my brother, who really loved that board, and I actually threw that board on him when he had never snowboarded before, but I knew he'd pick it up pretty quickly, and it would just be a board that he would grow into versus something that he'd have to replace quickly. So this board here is just basically the dream board that I've wanted for the last 5 or 6 years, because my snowboard season now is mainly booking a few trips out west, going to an actual mountain, and then I still enjoy a few days at Blue Mountain and Holiday Valley, but for the most part, I buy a board for my trips out west, because that's where I'm spending a few $1,000s to get myself out there. Not quite that much, but still, you're spending some money to get out there, and you want a board that's gonna work really well in a real mountain. So that's what this guy did here for me. And we're gonna start with the color. I always seem to get kind of screwed over with the color in my size, as boards change their colorways throughout the sizes just to change it up a little bit. And this one here, I'm super happy with, because it's not outrageous, but it's got a nice pop of contrast on the top sheet of the board, just black and white, with a little bit of teal with Jake Blovelt's signature near the tail and the RIDE Snowboards icon up front. So that was pretty sweet. I really like that. It's gonna be a board that I'll be happy with for the next 10 years. Because that's about the length of most of my board's lives. On the bottom, I kind of like the fact that they went with like a teal and orange. It's kind of like a bit of a film joke too. If you're following my channel for the video stuff, then you'll get that. It's actually looking a little bit dry because it's been out of the packaging. So it does need a bit of a base clean and a wax, but once we get that going, you'll see the color really come through, a nice shiny gloss of a nicely waxed board, and waxing boards is just super satisfying. But when we go through the board, and what makes this thing a lot different than my K2 Fast Plant is that it's actually 3/4 set back. It's more of an all mountain free ride board versus a freestyle twin park board. So with it being 3/4 set back, the tail is shorter than the nose. It's gonna be a lot better for that all mountain riding when you're riding some powder or you're just going a lot faster. You're at speed, it's gonna hold its edge a lot better, and you're just gonna feel more stable. I've also gone with a longer board this time around. Normally I ride between a 155 to a 157. This one's now a 159. A little bit longer. Again, at higher speeds, it's more stable. You get more control out of your board. It's not quite as good in the park, because with a bigger board, unless you're going for the biggest booters out there, it's a lot harder to maneuver on rails and things like that. So not quite a park board, but it's what I was looking for. It's also a hybrid camber. So it's camber underfoot with a lot of rocker up front. Again, great for powder and for a lot more control underfoot. So with that camber, instead of having rocker underfoot, you're going this way here, you get a lot more torsional stiffness. Again, at higher speeds, it's a lot more fun. In addition to that though, they've actually run carbon all throughout this board in different patterns to really give a lot more pop in the tail, and as well a lot more stiffness right underfoot. So right where the binding hardware is, there's gonna be some carbon stringers that run in an X pattern here. Again, just giving you a lot more pop and edge, more edge to edge. Not control, but poppiness. Just basically getting you from edge to edge a lot quicker. So that's super fun with that one there. The one thing that I did keep reading about this board is that it is on the narrower end. So if you're a size 11 boot or higher, you're gonna wanna go with something more like the War Pig or the Commissioner, I believe is the other board that's a little bit wider, not quite as aggressive in the side cut. But with that more aggressive side cut, it's getting you edge to edge a lot quicker as well. Your turning radius is a lot shorter. So those were kind of the big things that I was looking for in the board. It also has, again on the base, 4,000 sintered base. So when you go to a sintered base, it's gonna absorb a lot more wax, but it does require a little bit more maintenance than your extruded bases, which most of your park boards in that $400 range and below are gonna require. So you do need to wax it a little bit more, but it will absorb more wax in the initial waxing of it. So if I go out west, it's usually good for a week and then I'll re-wax it after that, just so I know I have a nice fast board. I also just really love to wax snowboards. It's like it's a little meditating for me. So just really relaxing. I enjoy doing it. But yeah, that's the tech in the board for the most part. It has your RIDE slime wall. Again, just to protect your edges a little bit more. There are some impact pads under the bindings as well. But if you want a full readout of what's included on this board, you can go on RIDE's website. They'll give you all that stuff. But let's get my new bindings that I also got mounted up on this board. So if you're wondering about my binding stats, I'm sure you're not, but I'm going to tell you anyway. All your RIDE bindings, they've got a wedgie footbed, basically giving you a little bit of an angle on the outside in right here. You probably can't see it on camera right now, but basically what that does, especially if you have a wider stance, it's actually going to bend your feet in just slightly. So if you're really wide out, you're not flexing your ankles too much. It puts you in a bit more of a natural position to actually be able to ride and carve a little bit better. Now, I like to ride my bindings pretty well factory mount, especially with it being a longer board. I'm gonna start there, get used to it, see how it feels, and then kind of either work my way in or out depending on which I find is gonna be better. Then for the degree, I will go plus 15 in the front, negative 15 in the back. I've played with a few other different versions, including what the packaging actually says for like a free ride, which is like a 0 in the back and a plus 15 in the front, but I like a bit of a duck foot. We all naturally, if you look at your feet when they're shoulder width apart, most of us are gonna be a little bit duck footed unless you're pigeon toed. So that's one thing you wanna look into as well, is what's gonna be comfortable for your feet. So again, I'm a regular rider, so right foot's in the back. I never tighten the hardware down fully until I know everything's lined up decently well. And most bindings now are gonna be a toe strap binding. I remember when they first kind of really started coming out, just made such a big difference with just control and comfort on your feet. The first run of them were only in the higher end, so your $350 price point and up, and now all bindings pretty well are toe cap. So basically meaning that they'll kind of grab the toe box of the boot instead of just pressing straight down on the top. You'll still see some people that will ride it that way, but so much more comfortable riding it with the toe strap just right over that toe box. And also it's gonna pull your boot back and push down at the same time, so it's giving you way more control as well. So one of the other things too that kind of learned a few years ago was to buy a few of these Mastercraft sawhorses. If you're in Canada, you know Canadian Tire. These things go on sale quite often because I think they run for between 60 and 80 bucks a piece when they're regular price, but Canadian Tire always has sales where they're like 20 bucks. So if you buy 2 of these Mastercraft sawhorses, you've got a workstation here for waxing or mounting boards, doing any of that kind of stuff, and it's way easier to stow away than a full table and everything, and you've got the grip pads up top, so it's a good trick. Where did I put the other plate? Good trick to look for these when they're on sale and pick a few up because they are so handy. Especially if you live in a small house like I do, it will just make life so much easier. Yep, did it again. Every time. So when I say factory too, if this is your first time setting up a snowboard, There's normally a marker or indicator to show you kind of where the middle position on the snowboard is. There's usually some lines pointing to the female hardware holes. It'll just get you set up and good to go a little bit quicker. It's a little bit easier too. And like I said, if you're just setting up your first snowboard, start at factory and see what feels good going out from there. Biggest thing is just knowing which way you ride. Are you regular or are you goofy? If you do set up snowboards like I do and you don't fully tighten it down right away, make sure you go back and retighten it. There is Loctite on all the hardware, but you gotta be safe. Don't wanna blow out a binding or strip a brand new board because it wasn't in there tight. Some hardware requires the posi drive, others are just a Phillips. This Phillips technically isn't quite big enough. It wants to stay on my face. It's not quite big enough, but you just have to really make sure you're not gonna strip your hardware because it's super annoying, especially mid-season when hardware is harder to find at ski shops. Just wanna keep it in good condition so that you don't need it till next year. All right. Oh man, I'm so stoked to try this thing. So with the bindings, they're a little bit on the stiffer end as well, but they're super light. This whole setup is so clean. Black and white bindings, black and white board on the top sheet. Looks great. I say that and I always tell customers who are looking at new skis or snowboards to not worry so much about the top sheet of the board because it gets covered in snow pretty well right away, and your ski pants are gonna cover the bindings also. So I mean, unless you're walking around strutting like a fashion model with your skis or snowboard, no one's gonna look or care. Most people who are looking at board setups are tech nerds like me, and they just wanna know what's inside the board to make this a super fun board to ride. Oh, the other thing too, aspen and bamboo core, if you're looking for that info as well. It does have a mix of aspen and bamboo. Again, bamboo is super durable, super light, and has a ton of pop in it. So it works really well with that combination of aspen. And that is my RIDE Berserker. Pretty excited to try it out. Pretty excited for 2022. And got a bunch of other videos that you know about already, so I won't talk too much more about them. Happy New Year, and we will see you in a couple weeks. My mom is helping me with the end of this video, and I figured I'd wrap it up outside because we finally got some winter weather, which is really exciting. It was also supposed to be really exciting because I was supposed to be heading to Tremblant at the end of this week. That's no longer happening because, well, COVID came back, and so I'm going to be heading up to Blue Mountain hopefully this weekend to test out the board. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.